Welcome to the Cocktail Spirit from Small Screen Network. I'm your host, Robert Hess. Now, again, here's a drink I found in the Savoy Cocktail Book, a book originally written in the 1930s, so it's a good snapshot of drinks that people would have had during American Prohibition when they were traveling in Europe and England and so forth. This drink is called the Spencer cocktail. It's a fairly simple drink. One of the ingredients it uses is apricot brandy. Now, when you see apricot brandy mentioned in a recipe, it can be confusing at several different levels. One is, are they talking about apricot brandy as in like an eau de vie, like a true brandy made out of apricot juice that you then ferment and then distill and turn into a true spirit? Usually not. Usually apricot brandy is going to be more of a liqueur, so it's sweetened and it's made by soaking in a raw alcohol base the flesh and the pits of apricots, adding some sugar to it, straining that off, and then bottling it. Now, another issue we have is just finding a good apricot brandy. For the longest time, what you saw in liquor stores was, a little bottle of apricot brandy like this, made by various companies that make products of that sort. They might technically be an apricot brandy, but from a flavor perspective, they really didn't capture it. And part of that's because apricot brandies weren't that popular, and so there was no demand for a quality craft product. Today I'm using apricot brandy from the Bitter Truth people, who have, I think, a wonderful product out in the market that really tastes like apricots. You can taste the craftsmanship that they used in making it. So let's get started. The drink starts off with 1.5 ounces of gin. Three-quarters an ounce of apricot liqueur. Now, when you see these recipes that call for apricot brandy, you can try, see if you can find an apricot eau de vie and using that instead of or as well, compare them side by side, because you actually might come across some recipes that were intended more for the eau de vie rather than the sweet. But this drink, I think, was definitely intended for the sweet instead. Now we're going to a dash of orange juice. So I pre-squeezed here, and I'm just going to use my bar spoon to assist. Okay, so what went in was a dash, so we need none of that. And that's another reason why using the bar spoon like that, it prevents that accidental slip up of adding too much accidentally. So it's more of a control mechanism. And then we're adding a dash of orange bitters. Again, I'm using, or aromatic bitters, I'm using the Bitter Truth aromatic bitters here. Now, even though this drink did call for orange juice, since we only used a dash of it, shaking is not the correct way to do this. We want to stir this drink rather than shake it, because it's still going to have a nice clarity to it by the stirring process. I mean, you can already see there in the glass itself, it's basically going to be a clear cocktail with just a bit of color added to it, which shows the importance of stirring it. If I'd shaken this, the apricot liqueur, being a sweet liqueur, would have added a lot of frothing and bubbling to it to a certain extent and clouded this drink. I mean, it probably wouldn't have looked very pretty. And there we have the Spencer cocktail. It's amazing. I mean, I'm tasting simultaneously the botanicals of the gin and the sweetness of the apricot. Since apricot liqueur is typically also used, the pits add more than just the apricot flavor to it, but they're actually adding kind of a slight bitter note to it as well. If you ever tried, sucking on an apricot pit, you'll take a notice it doesn't really taste like apricots. It's got more of a almondy sort of flavor that's slightly bitter to it. And so the combination of those is really quite interesting. I think works really well together. So I think you should try the Spencer cocktail with some good apricot liqueur and see whether you like it as well.